Okay, I think we're live.
Is this thing on?
I always start in a weird way. Like I always feel like I always feel anxious. Like, what did we just do? We just went live. Okay, so uh, this is a weird topic, a weird video title for my channel. But there's a reason for this. And the cool thing is, I haven't given Tyrus any of the show notes, so he has no idea where we're going.
Yeah, yeah. I'm excited about that. This should be very interesting.
Now, if I could have, I would have made the title a little longer, and I still might. So it might actually be changed when you're watching this. But the world is ending. Why make art? What I really wanted to say is the world is ending. Why work on my art career? Why spend time building an art career? And we're going to get into where this question came from and stuff. But before we do, how have you been? We haven't talked in a while.
Well, Will, listen, I've been pretty awesome. Now, listen, I've been working on my YouTube channel, and I briefly mentioned this to you. I'm debating on what that channel is going to be. Am I just going to teach like, hey, here's how you draw a hamster, or am I going to have all of these philosophical art talks, these opinionated conversations with myself?
You could do both.
I could, but it seems like I'd be tainting the system, Will.
I would definitely say yes if you asked me to guest on your.
Oh, yeah, you will say yes, Will Terry. Yeah, thanks for letting me know you'd come on my show. I appreciate it. Yeah, but I'm working on that, and then I started teaching at the university, at the college, so that's taking up a lot of my time. And I'm wrapping up like 4 books. So the lifeblood. I'm losing weight too. So yeah,
doing that together. Now, working when you teach, you're going to get a lot of stuff to talk about from that.
I already have a lot of stuff to talk about from that, and for lack of a better term, the wussification of America. It's kind of, and this isn't the topic, but I'll just throw this out there. I'm really, watching it change over the last 8 years in the classroom, where now it's being addressed. Hey, this person's unhappy with your enthusiasm in the classroom to make them a better artist. I never thought I'd have that conversation nor hear those words, but that's where we are. So maybe that's hey, well, because you've taught, so maybe that's another mini podcast or vlog we'll do, right?
That's a good one, because right now I think people are looking for excuses more than they look within. It's like we need to be retrained how to look at ourselves and do a self-assessment rather than look to blame somebody else for our problems.
Yeah, and that, I mean, I think that's a good hour and 30 minutes, especially once again for artists, where we talked about this in the Inktober, which was a really good podcast, a lot of good feedback, but it's people looking to focus more on why they aren't doing well, looking to say these things limited me, so therefore it's your fault I'm not a better artist, as opposed to saying, how can I be a better artist? Meaning, well, if you're my teacher and you come to me and you give me feedback, my response is not to say, well, I don't think Will likes me. In actuality, I don't care if Will likes me. The question is the feedback usable? Can I use what you said? Can I become a better artist? Like, you liking me is irrelevant. It's, are you giving me good feedback, and can I become a better artist? But we've thrown that away, and it's like, well, this makes me feel bad, therefore he must be a bad person and he must hate me. And so, the response comes from there. It's like we're in the Upside Down. Stranger Things season 2. Ah! Are you watching that, by the way, Will?
No.
Really? Did you see season 1?
Brother,
are you a communist?
I saw.
Yeah, you're a communist.
And
you didn't like it?
I'm going to watch it again.
What a weirdo. Everybody likes Stranger Things, Will, except for you. What a weirdo.
I don't know. I didn't give it enough of a chance. I'll say that.
Yeah, fair enough. You failed us once again. Go ahead, Will.
Let's unpack this topic a little bit here. So we have a lot of people joining in. I'm not seeing the chat enabled.
I can see the chat. I see you guys, Castleman, Filbert Mill.
How are you seeing it? I'm not seeing it.
Because once again, I'm better than you.
You are, but I don't know how.
What's new? I'll show you later, Will. Get back to the podcast.
Yeah,
Go,
all right,
go.
I'll be distracted anyway. So if there's something really cool in there, you can read it out. But thanks for joining us. And the really frustrating thing about the way they do the Hangouts is none of the comments from the chat make it onto the video when it's posted.
Yeah,
that really bugs
true.
me. So like, if you guys have good comments, come back to the video after this is done and it's on YouTube, because it's like half of all the gold is lost, you know, because people say so many good things.
I can do this, Will. If you like, I can share the comments whenever you like me to, and so I'll switch from me to the comments. How about that?
Oh yeah, okay, cool.
All
right. Now, one person asked me the last time, because we do these chats, and if you've been on my channel before, you know that Tyrus is like a regular. Are you sharing your chat?
There's the chat. I just wanted to make sure it worked. Keep going. We're good.
The reason I don't promote these ahead of time is because, one, we never know when we're going to be able to do it because our schedules, and it's like late at night, and like tonight we had technical difficulties trying to get it out. And so it's like, it's almost like it's so much less stress to just be able to just do one. So I know that that's frustrating to some people because they want to be able to join live, but at least it goes on the channel. Okay. So why are we talking about this subject? Again, I'll just reiterate for those who join later, is what I'm really talking about here is the world is ending. Why work on my art career? That's a question that I've been asked on email, and I had a friend whose son asked that question of him. Like, he drilled down on like why his kid was doing so bad in school. And this is actually somebody you know, Tyrus, but I don't have permission to put it out there.
Don't out him.
No, but his son was saying, you know, like, well, why do good in school? Because the world's going to end anyway. And this person said to me, why should I try? I'll just read an excerpt from it. Why should I try? Talk me into working on my art career because people keep telling me the world is going to end, so why try? Basically, was the gist of it. And when I heard my friend's son, when he told me of the conversation, it's like, I remember having those feelings when I was a kid. And how old are you? We established that before.
40 years old, Will.
You're only 40?
Only. This guy's a jerk.
So I had those feelings. And so I thought, let's talk about that. And one of the reasons why I want to talk about this, even though it's not typical for this channel, because all of my videos are about, how to become a better illustrator, how to market your work, how to work on your technique a little bit here and there. Sometimes I've done some of those, and it's all been really art related subjects. This one gets a little more philosophical, but the reason that I really felt strong about doing a video like this was I feel like I have a responsibility to my students, and I bet you do too.
By responsibility, you mean pouring gasoline on them and striking a match? Yes. Well, I do.
I mean, don't you? I never really understood why some teachers, as soon as the bell rang, it was like they didn't know you anymore. It was like, like they would never dare talk about anything other than the subject in the class. And I tended to really gravitate towards teachers that I felt I could be friends with outside of the classroom, and that means talking about things that aren't just class related.
So I'm sorry, let me interrupt and interject on that. Look, so even that part, the world is so different now than what it used to be, where you and I would go to school and say, look, I want a relationship with this guy because he's already figured out the path. Mm-hmm. So that's always been important to young artists. It's like, hey man, as a matter of fact, I want a mentor who happens to be an artist, and I'm going to learn everything I can until I can grow and branch off and do my own thing. Well, now it's different. So a mentor would correct you. That's what they do. They say, no, 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 you're thinking about this wrong. That's not the way to handle this, or try this instead, or why don't you, I had a really good teacher. I call him Professor Hyde. He's a great guy. Richard Hyde. He's a great guy. I'm throwing his name out. Um, he mentored me for years, and I'd go back to the school and visit him. We had lunch a couple months ago. Um, I still remember him bringing his art into the classroom and being blown away. This guy's pencil skills were crazy, right? So my response was, we didn't always agree politically. We disagree politically right now, but my desire to learn from him was so great that our disagreements didn't matter as much as what we did agree on, what he had to
Right.
offer me.
Right.
Well, now it's the exact opposite, where students are looking to be offended. Young artists are looking to be offended and say, well, we disagree in this philosophy, therefore I can't learn from you. And then what happens is they create this moat around themselves where they're all alone
Yeah.
with a bunch of other people who think exactly like them. And, we see this not only in art, and this is important what you're saying. Like, at first I was like, oh, this is a crazy topic, but I jotted down some things. Well, I'm on fire. I'm ready to go. It's a difference in how we think. So you said when you were younger, you might have had these thoughts and say, well, what's the point? What's the point? But here's what happened. Well, at some point you realized that art was hope. The talent that you had equaled hope for you. So you can draw and get better. There's hope. You can draw something really great and become famous. There's hope. You can draw and actually get hired. There's hope. So art has always been hope. And not only as artists, as people who draw, but it's also in movies. It's also in books. Those are all artistic expressions. And so artists have always given people hope, the idea of a brighter tomorrow, the idea of something being different. So that's what we're dealing with. But now we have young artists who aren't interested in learning that perspective. So they create a moat around themselves, and then they end up in misery. And it's not only in art, it's in every part of our society right now, where instead of people reaching out to people who have different ideas than they do, or different political views, or different religious views, what we're doing, the young people and some older people too, creating this environment where it's a soundboard. Everybody sounds like them. Well, that's not good. That's never been good. And so it leads to more of what you're talking about. We have a different group of people who are not willing to say, I want to learn. And because they're not willing to learn, they can't get a new perspective. Without a new perspective, you lose hope.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I think when you talk about perspective, that's what I'm hoping to give for both of us to give by having this chat, because I think a lot of these younger artists, that's what they're really lacking is they're, and we're going to bring some history in to help solve that. But back to that, the idea of why have this discussion on my channel. I think I feel like as a teacher, I'm trying to help my students make good art and get better as artists. And if there's something in the way, something could be, they're not willing to apply themselves, or they're not working, long enough on a piece, or they're not looking at other artists to be inspired, or they're not watching to see what other artists do technique wise. There's a whole long list of things that they're doing, but this fits into that list of things that they're doing wrong, to become a better artist, because it's a roadblock, right?
Yeah.
So I think
Yeah.
it's totally appropriate for this, and I guess we'll find out from the comments from people that are watching. But I do think that this is something really important. Um, so the first thing I wanted to kind of go into is this idea of why try, why work hard, because it's the world's going to end, is an old idea.
It's
It's
not new at all. Yeah, this
and
has been repeated over and over and over again.
and so I'm just going to grab the screen here and just show on Wikipedia. We're talking about right after Christ's death. Uh, this has been going on, and you can search predicted dates for apocalyptic events, or just search. I think I Google searched when the world is going to end or something like that, and the list just scrolls and it scrolls and it scrolls. And these are all people who were sure that the world was going to end. In fact, just recently, people thought the world was. There were a lot of people that were sure the world was going to end on this eclipse that we just had. in September. Did you know that?
Yeah. Well, here's the time that the world, for some reason, the world always ends toward the end of the year. October and November
Right.
consistently tend to be the months that the world, for whatever reason, people think, oh, we're going to make it through most of the year, but right before Christmas, boom, boom. That's
Right.
crazy talk.
So anyway, I want to bring that in that so okay, so this is going to take me into another idea, and that is that I think now this is me speculating, okay? I'm totally speculating, and this might not be it for you. If you're someone who has thought this or is worried about this, I'm going to speculate, but it might not be it at all. But I think some people, some kids don't have this perspective because they're not being talked to by their parents. And I'll give you a reason. A reason I say that is, um, my wife and I, we would have a lot of conversations with our kids as they were growing up. My youngest now is 18, but we have three boys, and the oldest is 27. And when
That's
my
because
oldest
you're
was,
old, Will.
I'm old, but when
27.
my when my oldest kid was going to high school, I was teaching art in California at a high school out there for a few years, and one of the teachers that was my son's teacher came up to me in a teacher meeting, and he's like, "I just want you to know that I use your son as an example a lot, and I ask for his opinion in class because he's one of the few kids that has an opinion on political things, on different things, and so he's like he can be a discussion leader because he actually has thought a lot of these things through. Do you talk to your kids?" And I'm like, "Yeah, we have discussions all the time." He's like, "I thought so because most kids don't have any opinion or don't know what's going on at all." And so I wonder if that's part of it. You know, is it that that there's a lack of perspective? Because historically, it's like if you if you're planning on, you know, making future plans for your future based on you think the world is going to end, to me that says you don't have the perspective to know that every generation has felt this way.
Yeah, that's true. And you don't understand history, and you don't understand how limited our vision is as far as the future and how the world's going to go, and how this is nothing new. And
Right.
so it's easy to fall. Let me tell you why it's easy to fall into that mindset. It requires nothing of you. You can quit, right? If I say, well, tomorrow I'm going to die, so I shouldn't work today, then it allows me not to work today. Even if tomorrow I wake up and I'm still here, I get to say again on Saturday, I'm going to quit because it's going to end. It allows no social responsibility, no physical responsibility, no responsibility on my part at all, because guess what? Everything is coming to an end. And it's an easy way out. And when not confronted with truth, when not confronted with the bad idea of what is being said, then kids will carry that idea around. And when I say kids, I mean 18, 19, 20, 21. They'll carry that idea with them as if they're justified in it with no proof whatsoever. Ultimately, they're willing to accept that idea because it's easier. It's like um, a teacher who gives, I was giving a student a critique today in class, and his student's response was, but I like it that way. And I explained, well, let me show you some actual art reference. Look, here's what's being done in that style, and here's what this means. It translates better, blah, blah. And I'm going through and I'm doing a breakdown, and I'm grabbing comic books from the 1970s and 80s, for example, like Loki, how Loki was such a boring character. And someone says, hey, man, let's give him kick butt horns. And all of a sudden, Loki's one of the better characters in Marvel now. It's a little design, right? So I'm breaking it down and I'm talking about this, and her reply was, I like it this way. Right. So it's the unwillingness to see beyond what you can see and to say, in my world, this makes sense. Therefore, this is what it's going to be.
Right.
And I said, well, look, if you're dealing with an art director, they're going to, this doesn't work design wise. It's too small. It's too compact. You need to free it up. Blah, blah. It's the same thing with this end of the world notion. It's like, it works for me. It works for me. Well, never mind that the rest of the world is moving on. It has to come to an end because I don't have the energy to continue, or I don't think it should continue, or it's a really foolish way of seeing the world and responding to it.
So do you think that that kids need almost like they need a class on how to be a student because it seems like they're and we're the old guys, I guess, but you know, the old crabby guys that are complaining about the students. But
Yes,
are
yes, I
they
hear.
different? I mean, are students different today than than we were? I mean, I think we probably had some of that too, where we had, you know, like, I want to do it my way. I don't want to listen to you. What do you know?
No, I don't think it's the same. I think so we have Insta art in our society, right? You can go and look and see the best. You used to have to go to an art library, you have to buy books, you know, you may have to travel. Now you can see your 17 favorite artists anytime you want and look at their work and explore their work. So their access to art versus our access to art is completely different. But we're also talking about a different breed of people. So in our society, because everything, they call it a microwave society. Everything is boom, 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 boom. And it's changed people. It's changed people. And so people don't think they have to work for anything. But there's something about work. There's something that should be said about work. Work gives us reason
And purpose, yeah.
and purpose. That's right. So the easier things get, the less reason and purpose we have. And we begin to become self-destruction. We begin to participate in self-destruction. And not only this conversation, but in other conversations. So if you look at the country in general, people are less happy when they should be happier. Um, and it's because things are so easy now. We lose purpose, we lose focus. And I don't think it's just two old men talking. First of all, I'm young. Let's get that right. Right. But I don't think it's two old men sitting around griping. I think our observations are true. I think we see it in the news. I think there's a shift in humanity where people care less about humanity than they did in certain ways, and in other ways more. And I think it's a legit complaint. I think what we're talking about is real. I think teachers all across the country are saying the same thing. Like, I can't teach anymore because it's all about feelings. Oh, here's an example. So, Will, you've been in college. Here's a new phenomenon that didn't exist in the 70s and even early 80s and even early 90s. Helicopter parents,
Yeah.
where parents come to college or call the teachers and argue about their kids' grades. That's never existed. How about this? Companies saying, here's the biggest problem we have with people coming in. They come in and think they can use their cell phones all day, or that they can log in on Facebook and they don't have to work and they can sit there and chat with their friends. And if you interrupt them, they feel like you've done them a disservice. Or companies saying parents are coming up to bosses and saying, I need to have a meeting with you because I don't like the way you're treating my children. This is not from our imagination. This is a real problem. So all of these schools are dealing with this and saying, how can we prepare our students better for the workforce? And so it's a real problem. This is an quote unquote epidemic with the mindset of why try? Why should I do it the right way?
Right.
Or when you get information, you don't think, why should I listen to you? Never mind that you've been in the industry for 20 years and you can do this for a living. Somehow I know more than you just because I feel like I know more than you. So it's a legit problem. It's real. It's not, it's not make believe.
One of the things I say to combat that idea, like the student that you had that says, you know, I like it this way. This is how I do it. My next thing, and so when I first started teaching, I would get frustrated, you know, and
Mhm,
I would get I probably got short with a few students sometimes because I didn't really know how to handle it. And
mhm,
I think
mhm.
the more you do it, the better you get at it. And so the thing that I found that works the best now is just to say, well, then why are you here? Like, if you already have it all figured out and you're not willing to try a different way, then why are you here? Could you imagine telling your science teacher the same thing? You know, could you imagine telling your computer science class teacher, well, I like to do it my way? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
art has principles and rules, and and those rules can can be broken, but um, we're here to we're here to show you a different way, show you maybe some of the bad habits that you've had, and to teach you some of those principles. And if you're not going to be open to it, then you really don't need me. You know,
right.
it's that
Yeah.
old thing, when the student has arrived, the teacher will appear.
I
Um,
love that quote. It makes you seem mystical when you say it.
like, you can just
Say it again, Will, because I think people might have missed that. You kind of ran over that. Say that again.
When the student has arrived, the teacher will appear.
Oh,
Yeah.
first of all, that's my saying, and Will stole it. I said it to him a couple of podcasts ago. So
I wish
when
I
you,
that one.
yeah.
But anyway, yeah. So let me tell you a story that goes right along with this idea. So I have a friend of a friend who I know really well, and we've been friends for kind of a long time. But he's kind of a bonehead. he's he's the weird friend in your friends pool, right? And he just decided that the world was going to end, and this was like 10 years ago. And he's my age, right? And things weren't. He didn't like his job, and I'm really hoping he doesn't watch this podcast, but I'm pretty sure he doesn't watch my stuff, or he might know. I'm not gonna go into details on him, but he lost his job for kind of doing something stupid, and then their whole family got on food stamps, and and I'm not judging him for that. That please know that I'm not judging anybody for being on food stamps. We went through our financial meltdown. I know what it's like, but he decided that he didn't need to get another job because the world was going to end, right? And I'll just say, so he's a truck driver, okay, and so that was his job, and he was driving truck for a company, and he lost his job, and for I think 5 or 7 years he didn't have a job, and they just tried to make ends meet. They did a bunch of odds and ends type things to make a little bit of money here or there, but it was mostly his time was mostly filled with playing video games
Sounds
and
right. It seems legit to me.
just waiting for this end of the world scenario, and it didn't come. And so 2 years ago, he just realized, well, I guess the world's not going to end. Crap. I'm too young to not be making any money, and I'm too old to really start a whole brand new career. So the good news is he borrowed some money from a friend and actually bought his own tractor. The tractor trailers. You buy the tractor part. Do you know anything about trucking?
I do.
Okay, so he apparently when you buy the truck, you can make a lot more money.
Yeah, a
But
lot more money.
but it costs a lot. And he bought a used truck, and he's been out there for the last year running his own loads, and using a website that manages those loads. And he makes 2 or 3 times as much as he made when he was working for the company.
Hmm.
And so he's like reinventing himself now at age 50. But their family is still basically broke from all those years of not working. And so he's rebuilding his life at 50. And so for you young guys, I mean, imagine that. Imagine if you're wrong and you got to rebuild. You're right at
Yeah,
50.
yeah.
Like, and at 50, you got to figure things out. It's easier to figure things out now. You're used to being poor. Wait till you're old and you want to have some nicer things, and
And you're running out of time.
you're running out of time. Yeah,
There's no room. There's no room to be wrong then.
right, exactly.
Yeah.
So that's just one story. I'll tell you another one, and maybe you have some too. When I was growing up, when I was a kid, I grew up in Maryland, and right next to our next door neighbors, they had this hill in their backyard. Right, it was weird because all the yards were flat, and they had this hill in their backyard. And I remember asking my dad, like, why the heck do they have a hill? And they had little trees growing out of it and stuff. Why do they have this hill? And he's like, oh, that's a bomb shelter. I go, bomb shelter? What? What are you talking about? Yeah, let's go over there. He'll let us go down and look at it. And so we went over to his house, Mr. Willis, and he took us out down there and showed us this little crappy little room. It was all
Hmm.
musty, and they had food storage down in there. And so I'm talking to my dad. I'm like, what gives? Like, what's the deal with that? And he's like, oh, like 10 years ago, 15, 20 years ago, we thought the world was going to end. Everybody was pretty sure we were all going to blow ourselves up with nuclear warheads.
Facts. Russia has always been in our sights, and it's only a matter of time. But please continue.
But I mean, like, it was serious enough And there's even a movie with Brendan Fraser. I can't remember what it is. Remember that one? Where
Now,
he
I try not to watch movies with Brendan Fraser.
I know, but
I don't know about you, but I like good
it
movies.
was actually a pretty fun one where they were down in this bomb shelter and because they thought the world had ended, but it didn't, and they were down there for like years. And he grew up in the bomb shelter and came up in L.A. I can't remember the name of it, but anyway. So that's like a real thing, like in my life. And then I got all scared about the world ending because I'm like, well, how would the world end? And my dad's like, oh, well, every country, all the big countries have bombs that could just blow up the whole world. And in my mind, because he didn't explain that, like I thought like vaporize the whole planet. And for years, that's what I thought. I thought the whole planet could get lit up until we're all atoms at any moment. Like I'm breathing right now. And if I take 3 more breaths, we're just atoms, which actually would be a pretty good way to go if you think about it.
Well, yeah. So, I mean, if you actually think about it, the deal is that if the world comes to an end, it's not like you can stop it. So you might as well be found working. And there's a religious component to that. So if we're talking about the end of the world, oftentimes it's spurred by a religious perspective, which is fine.
Right.
No problem with that, right?
So not only are we going to talk about the world ending, we're also going to go
religion
on this. This is one of the scariest videos we've ever made.
Every time you bring me on, I almost ruin your whole entire show. No, but so the religious response, though, so no matter what religion you are, is that you're supposed to be found working. You never once see the teachings of a great prophet or Christ where it says, hey, just lay down and wait and everything will come to an end. No, it says you should be found working. Right. And each version of a religion will give you what you should be doing in the meantime. You don't see that I can think of, and I've studied this quite a bit, you don't see a response of, oh, no, it's cool, just go ahead and die. It's no, there are things to do to prepare for the end of everything, to prepare for the end of life, to prepare for the end of the world. And so I always say to myself, to my kids, be found working in anything that you do, right? If you get fired, that's okay, you get fired, but be found working. If they fire you, they fire you. Be found being busy. If you don't have a job, get busy. Be found working. Start your own thing. Start your own art piece. Start your own Instagram. You don't have a lot of followers? That's okay, cool. Be found working. So what happens is eventually you find your niche in the world, right? But you only get there by working. You don't get there by laying down and waiting for your niche to show up. Right. Meaning you have to, there's a term I really love, and Will, you can't steal this from me, failing forward, right? I coined that. All right.
Now you know about the book, right?
What?
You know about the book.
There's no such book. So anyway, failing forward. And that means like, look, I'm going to make mistakes, but I'm going to find my way. And the faster I fail forward, the quicker I find the right direction. And all of that goes back to being found working, in whatever situation. The opposite is what people are suggesting. Oh, well, everything's coming to an end, so I might as well die. So let's take it from the world coming to an end to this job will lead me nowhere. All right. So we go from super big to super small. This job is going nowhere. Or I'm not at the company I want to be at, therefore I might as well not work. Or I don't have the job at Disney or wherever you want to work, so it's no point in me really. No, it's the exact opposite. It's I am working toward that thing. So yeah, I may be a janitor now. True story. Let me jump in and give you some stories, Will Terry.
Story time.
So I used to be a janitor in my late 20s. I was, let's see, which job did I get fired from at this point? No, this is before I was designing toys for the Happy Meal. But I was cleaning toilets in the middle of the night. And they were like model homes, when you go to buy a house and you walk through these beautiful, beautiful homes and you pick the one you want to have built. Well, I would go and clean those up. And I remember, man, I was cleaning toilets and sweeping the floor. And I decided that I would be the best toilet cleaner the boss she had. And every night I'd make sure everything was done the way it should be. And within 2 months, I was running that entire part of Illinois. And then I went out into Wisconsin because the goal was, look, I'm here. I want to be an artist. Like I want to be an artist, but I'm going to be found working. And then when I was done with that job at 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, I went home and I drew. And I used that job as fuel to say, I don't want to do that forever, so I better draw, right? There was a point, Will, and I'm going to do on my channel, I'm going to do a talk about how I use art to stop being poor. Like at one point I lived in a van. Um, and I use that. I'll never forget that. I brag on that. At one point in the middle of winter in Iowa, when I got kicked out of college because I ran out of money, I slept in a van, and I was freezing. And at the time, my girlfriend she had gone back home, and so it was just me. And she went home for Christmas break, so it's like 2 or 3 weeks, I guess, whatever. And I was sleeping in a van, and I was like, man, I don't want this for my life. So I could have said, it doesn't matter. I quit, whatever. I could have done that, but I didn't. I took that failure that was happening in my life or the disappointment, and I used it for fuel. And so that's the exact opposite approach of it doesn't matter. No, 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 no. It does matter. Things may not be going the way we want them to go, but it does matter. I believe that because I'm an artist, that tomorrow I can create the Mona Lisa. I believe that tomorrow I might get called for that interview. Let me share another story, and then I'll let you talk again, Will, because I'm excited about this part. See, not the bigger picture, but the smaller picture. Um, I got to design toys for the McDonald's Happy Meal program, but at the time, before I got that job, I was actually applying to be a police officer because I just needed work. I had to have money. I had to live. And I had taken a physical, and I was in the Marines I think I was still in the reserves at the time, and I was still wrestling, so I was in great shape. This was easy. Boom. No problem. I qualified, and they said, hey, you're leaving this Friday. They said, you're leaving this Friday, and the salary was great. It was like starting salary was $50,000. It's like, and I was, what was I guess I was 27, 28 at the time. So maybe I was 31. I don't know, something like that. And I was a great starting salary. And so I was like, yeah, I'll do this. And so it was Wednesday, and I was supposed to leave on Friday. So I had my bags packed. I was going to become a police officer. It's like, that's it. And I got a call from this company. And the company said, hey, man, listen, we like your work, and we think we'd like to interview you. Now, keep in mind, they didn't say they were going to hire me. They said, we'd like to interview you. And so we hung up the phone, and I had to make a decision. Either I take this guaranteed $50,000, right? Or I hang on to the hope that I might get the job. And what art did for me was it allowed me to live on hope. I'm going with the hope. I'm going with the hope. I believe in this art thing. I'm going to go with the hope. And so I interviewed for 3 months with this company. There were over 1,000 candidates.
So for 3 months, you're like back and forth with them?
Yeah. Oh yeah, man. This is a terrible time as far as like being anxious and excited and worried. And so for 3 months, man, I'm having these interviews, and one person would interview me, and it felt like they didn't like me. The other person, they love me. And so this is going on for 3 months. And so they say, hey, it's down to the last 10 people. Then it's down to the last 3 people. So then it was down to the last 2. So it was me and one other person. And they said this is cool. And like I said, art is hope. They said to me, well, we're going to give the other person a job. And I was like, really? He said, but we appreciate you interviewing with us. And I'm like, oh no, and my heart was broken. And at the time I was doing marriage counseling. So I was about to get married, and I was on the expressway, and I turned around, and I remember being so angry, and I was like angry at God. I was angry at everybody. Right. And within 3 to 4 minutes, all of a sudden the art hope arose again, right? Where, no, you can do this. They say they don't want you. Go to lunch with them tomorrow and convince them that they do. And I took that same thing that I'm telling everybody we're supposed to have as artists, and I said, I can win them over. I can be better. I can be a better artist. Give me a chance. So anyway, long story short, we go to lunch the next day. I win them over. The next day, they offer me the position. And that's what art is.
Wow.
It's always the promise of tomorrow could be better if I keep working. And when we look at life in that way, that's why I say art is hope. It's not only being a hand artist or illustrator, or it's a writer, a poet. It's tomorrow you can change everything with the words that you write today. So having that creativity, I think our responsibility is to never give up hope and never say it doesn't matter. It always matters. We have the power to change and shape the world. If you don't believe me, look what Hollywood has done to America. It's changed and shaped the way that we see the world. That's the gift that we have. Go ahead, Will. I've been talking a long time.
To add on to that, you said it's our responsibility. I think you're right, because each one of us is an individual, and each one of us has and I'm talking about artists, and I'm assuming that most of the people that are watching this are artists. But what I'm saying is, or what I'm thinking is that because each person is an individual, each person is going to create something different. And if you do not develop your talent as an artist, you're stealing something from the world. You're
I
taking
agree.
something
Yep.
that should be in the world and you're withholding it. And I think that a lot of this discussion on this topic and why a lot of kids or even adults feel this way, why try? I think some of it, and not all of it, but I think some of it is probably due to the fact that you're actually scared that you'll fail, and like you said, there's no cost to saying, "Well, the world's going to end," because it's an easy out, like you said, right?
Yeah.
So it's a way for a lot of people uh, to take the pressure off themselves because, hey, we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. We can't see the future, and I would make and I think a lot of people already feel this way, but I mean, I think a lot of people think they want to know the future, but you don't want to know what's going to happen tomorrow.
Absolutely not.
You think you do, but you really don't. Um, it would take away if you knew what was coming. It would take away all of the surprises. It would take away all the joy, the unexpected joy, all of the accomplishment that you earn along the way, all the amazing little things that happen in your career. Um, some things are some things might be things that you actually earned, while others might be things that are kind of uh, luck that happens to you, but it happens to you because of your hard work, right?
Hmm.
Um, and and so I think I think we have this feeling that we want to be secure, we want to be safe, we want to know. This goes to the title topic. We want to know that nothing bad is going to happen. Well, guess what?
Yeah.
Bad things are going to happen.
Promised.
Bad things
Absolutely
are going to happen,
promised. Yeah.
but good things are going to happen too. Uh, and and when you try to work on your career, you're going to have little successes and you're going to have little failures. Um, but that's where happiness comes from, right? Is
Hmm.
through the struggle. It also really comes from helping others. So I always suggest this, and this is part of my religion too. Although I'm not going to talk about religion, but part of it is that you really are never happier than when you're helping someone else.
Hey, Will, let me interrupt you. Ben wrote a really good comment, and maybe not today, but we can follow up. He says, Ben Miglior, I don't know if I'm saying that right. He wrote, I love a class on how to be a good student.
Okay,
That's a great topic, right? I mean,
yeah,
just a breakdown on how to be a good student. Yeah,
yeah,
I like that. Hmm.
that would be. So, will you make a note of that? Did you already make a
Yeah,
note?
I wrote it down. Well, let's go.
Yeah.
I'm ready.
All right.
I'll do
So,
it on my channel.
yeah, I think that I think we buy insurance, we buy health insurance, we buy car insurance, we buy all these different insurances, and yet when we do all these things, we buy locks for our doors, we do everything we can to make our lives as safe as possible, and in the end, bad things still happen to good people, and they always will, and
Hmm.
we will never get to that point where we can insure against everything bad happening. Sometimes it's health related, sometimes it's accident related, sometimes it's things that happen to a family member that you can't plan for. um, and I'm not saying you shouldn't try to make your life safe, but what I'm saying is that um, that relying on safety, like I'll be happy when everything is safe, then you're not going to ever be happy. We have to learn how to be comfortable with the unknown. We have to learn how to be comfortable with um, working without the guarantee of getting a really good payment. I mean, that's the nature of being an artist, right? That right there too, because it's you never know, you don't know what's going to happen um, with your effort. And I know people that have quit trying to make it as an illustrator, and they've bounced to something else. And and I don't fault them at all for that. And some people have gone on to get good jobs in other fields and support their art that way. To me, that's not a failure at all. You're always an artist, and you always will be an artist as long as you're making art.
Yeah.
Um, and um, and and so the goal shouldn't be the. And I know we're moving off topic just a little bit, but I just want to kind of finish this up. The goal shouldn't be I have to make this much money right now, or else I'm a failure as an artist. It should be, and this is where I come from. Is I want to make the best art I can, and if the world responds to it, uh, to where I get a financial, I'm supported financially from it, even better. But I'm happy making this art, and those are the artists that tend to be the most successful, are the ones that are making art for themselves. That the world then, those their audience, kind of finds them and falls in love with it, and those are the people that you say, well, man, they're just lucky, they're just mega successful. Well, they worked really hard. They were in motion. They weren't sitting back playing video games all the time and waiting for the world to end. They were out there working, and good things happen as a result. Now, how many times have you been to a Walmart or a McDonald's or someplace like that, and you see somebody there that's really old working there? Do you ever wonder about those lives, if there were bad decisions, if there were lives on hold sometimes? I know not always, but
Yeah, I mean, I think, I so my mother-in-law, she's a really great person, and my father-in-law, he's a really great guy, and they just like working. You know what I mean? Like, so my father-in-law, he's a hunter, and he worked in a factory, and then he stopped all of those things, and then he found like a job in a local auto parts store, just because he likes being around people. And I used to think, oh man, these are people who made bad decisions, but sometimes it's just people who want to continue to explore life
you're
and
right.
not be locked away. But now let's flip that coin. I've also seen people working at McDonald's who have no business being there, and it's probably based on bad decisions
Right.
more so than
It's nuanced, and it's not, you can't put everybody into a box and say, well, every old person working at McDonald's made bad decisions. That's not what I'm saying at all.
yeah, yeah.
I think what we're saying is that there's a certain group of people who made bad decisions waiting for the world to end, who are now paying the price, like we talked about, uh, my friend, the truck driver. Um, there's a couple in the UK who, I'm gonna grab the screen again.
Okay. While you're doing that, Dan Shapira, I might be saying it wrong. He wrote, "Not moving off topic, Will Terry, you're giving important context to a valuable point." So he says, "Keep
Oh,
going." In other words,
oh, awesome. Thank you, Dan. That was Dan. Cool. All right. So I'm going to go to this one here in the Telegraph. This story is amazing. Like, these two parents, they were so worried that the world was going to end because of global warming. They
oh,
shot their kids, two kids, and then they killed themselves. But the baby survived, and they were able to save the baby. But I mean, like, this is taking it, that idea to the extreme, right?
right,
This
yeah.
is this is how bad they thought. Now, switching over, let's go here to Discover. I think this is part of the Discovery Channel.
Oh
Here
gosh,
we go.
what are we doing right
20 ways the world could end. I'm not going to go through all these, but I mean, if you're
now?
worried that the world is going to end because of global warming or because
Number two is awesome. Gamma ray burst.
gamma ray bursts, um, there's a lot of things that could just end everything, according to scientists. And the thing is, this has always been the case. Asteroids have struck the Earth, uh, forever, right? And so, um, I mean, like, this is a real thing that we have to deal with somehow, mentally, to where we can put it and compartmentalize it and put it away and move on, because you can't control this stuff, right? Robots taking over.
Hey, Will, Jason said we should start a pool on how the Earth's going to end.
Right, right, right. I mean, some of these are kind of hokey, but I mean, like, the idea being that, uh, that you there's a number. If you're worried about one of these, you should be worried about 20 of them.
Well, so let's look at it. Let's just take it away from this perspective, and let's think about it like this. If you're a boxer and you stand in a ring and you focus on what your opponent can do, here's what will happen: you'll get knocked out,
Hmm.
right? You have to focus on what you can do. You can't control what your opponent can do. It's that way in every sport, and I like sports, and most people like sports because they're They're an example of life. You have to go on with your game plan. A lot of things can happen that you can't control. What
Right.
we do is we adapt and overcome. Adapt and overcome. When I was in the Marines, that was one of the things that they talked about. And there's a term that I love, and no, you cannot steal it, Will Terry. It's called capitulate or die, right? So when these things come, we change or we die. But we don't sit and we don't wait for death. We're not looking for death. I don't wake up in the morning or I stay up all night looking out the window looking for asteroids. It does me no good. I can't protect against asteroids anyway. So I might as well be found working, right? Yeah, I could die of a heart attack tomorrow, but what if I live for another 60 years? It's
And
possible.
the
Got
what
good
if,
DNA.
to me, the what if is the motivator. Because I mean, if you have an imagination, if you can, if you already have an imagination that you're going to quit because the world's going to end, you better have an imagination of what's going to happen to you if it doesn't.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah,
I mean, like,
yeah.
you need to imagine both sides of that coin and imagine how sad you're going to be, like my friend James. And if you joined us late, go back and listen when this is up on YouTube. Listen to that story, because I mean, I can't believe that I have somebody that close to me that literally quit for 10 years and is now, paying the price for that. And his family's paying the price, or paid the price.
Well, let's throw this ball into the arena too. If you believe the world is going to end, all right, let's say or whatever, and or that you'll never let's once again minimize it. You'll never be a great artist, right? Or you'll never make it. You'll never be successful. So what? You might as well die doing what you love and do art anyway, right? Like, why does it have to be based on how quote unquote successful you are as opposed to how much you like doing it? So if you're an artist, you probably like doing art. And so why not spend that time saying, you know what, I'll never make it, but I'm going to enjoy doing my art. And what you said earlier matters. That those are the artists who tend to do well. So Jake is a good example. You're a good example. It's like, Will, you found your stride because you kept doing art. You found your style because you kept doing art. You enjoyed drawing, and you figured out this thing, and oh, look, you came to these miniature creatures, and wonderful, right? You would have never got there if you said, I'll never make it. As opposed to saying, I love what I do, so I'm going to keep doing it. And then boom, you found this thing. Same thing with Jake. If you watch Jake, he's running to his thing because he kept chasing the art more so than chasing fame.
Yeah.
And so that's really it. It's like sometimes we forget that in our failures, we love what we do. What else would we be doing? You might as well do art, because we all know this. If we're all artists in this room and we're all talking, we all know that we didn't like doing other things anyway. When I talk about the story of cleaning toilets, I didn't like cleaning toilets. I'd rather be drawing. Hey, here's a better example. When I was in the Marines, I was really good in the Marines. I got promoted 3 times in like 2 years. I was good. I was natural. I didn't want to do that for the rest of my life. At one point I said, yeah, I can do this. Physically, I could do it. Mentally, I could do it. I was great at it. But I said to myself, I don't want to do it. I want to be an artist. And that motivated me. So when I left the Marines, man, I had to go to art school. I had to get my butt kicked in life. Here's a side note, a funny story. I was working at this place. It was like Kinko's. And it wasn't Kinko's. It's called Copyworks. And this company, this lady, my boss, she absolutely hated me. I don't know. We didn't have any problems. She just didn't like me. And there was a lady by the name of Doreen who worked in Photoshop on the machine, on the computers. And so I said, Doreen, will you teach me how to do what you do? And I would get off my shift and I would sit next to her for 2 hours watching her work in Photoshop. And I kept doing it and I kept doing it and I kept doing it. And then I got fired. And the hope that I got from Doreen encouraged me to say, this is not the end all of me. This is one moment. And I signed up for art school. And then I moved from Iowa back to Illinois and I went to art school. And when I was in art school, I was so hungry, and I took that failure. I took that end of the world moment. And this is my thing. Like, I like to take these small moments and let them fuel me to the next great moment. Mm-hmm. And I'd be in art school for the next 2.5 years. And I'm going to let them know they were wrong about me. They were wrong about me. And I used that as fuel. And I was so fired up. And every time I got a job and I didn't get a promotion, you're wrong about me. See, I never let it become the end of the world moment for me. Or I might as well give up. Nah, bruh, we're not doing that. I can do better. I may not have it now. You may not see it now, but I'm going to prove you wrong. And that's the competitive nature that we have to have, where You know what I said? Art is hope. I can always get better. Will, hypothetically speaking, let's say you're a better 3D artist or 2D artist than me. That's today, but tomorrow may be my day.
That's right.
See, and when I say art is hope, that gives me the fuel to say, today you're better than me, but I can outwork you tonight. When you go to sleep, I'm going to put in 2 extra hours to be better than you. Art is hope. And when you look at it that way, you never have that end of the world moment. You have that, I don't want the world to end because I'm going to catch Will Terry. And it changes everything. Go ahead, Will.
And I mentioned this before on this channel, but I was never the best, and I always had those artists that I had to chase that were better than me in high school, junior high school, college. I was never the best, and I had the same attitude of I'm going to catch them. I'm going to catch them. I don't really know how to help someone who, if you're stuck in this pattern of thinking of, I can't try. I don't know how to help you other than to give you these anecdotal stories, because maybe that'll help. Here's another one. And talking about some of these things, I want to talk about something else coming up here too. But my grandfather was, you mentioned being a janitor. My grandfather was a janitor. I worked at McDonald's. I cleaned toilets at McDonald's. So I'm just meeting your toilets with toilets. Just
trying to max my story. I'm going to one up you as soon as you're done.
That's the quote of the podcast right there. I'm going to meet your toilets with toilets. No, but one day I was at his house, and he lived there. He was called, the job title was sexton, is basically the caretaker of a church.
Oh, okay.
Did you ever? I never. I found that out after he died, that he was a sexton. I'm like, what's that? I asked my parents. Well, that
sounds like something Kevin Spacey did, but please continue.
I know the groundskeeper, but he did everything. He took care of everything at this church. It was a church and a seminary and all these different buildings and stuff that he took care of. But one day I was in his sweeping up in the garage, and I was just messing with the broom, and and I didn't want to. I was up there to play, and he gave me a job to do, and I didn't want to do it. And he could tell. And he took me aside, and he just said, and I never forgot this. He said, "You can hate the work that you're doing, or you can love the work that you're doing, and it doesn't matter what the work is. You can learn to love it." And I talked to my mom about that, because I was kind of mad, and she's like, "Well, look at him. He freaking loves his." She didn't say freaking. He loves his job, and you can tell he loves it. He absolutely loves this job, and they loved him. When he died, they said at his funeral, "There's no way that he'll ever be replaced."
Isn't that amazing to have somebody say that about you?
Yeah.
That your passion was so strong that we can replace you, but we'll never replace what you've done.
That's right.
Yeah.
Because he would do everything the extra mile. If they asked for, I remember him he did woodworking too. And so he would make things for the church. And I remember him taking stuff and installing it, and the powers that be, the priests or whoever they were, I didn't know who they were at the time, but they would just give him so much praise, like, wow, we didn't think you would do this much, because he would just magnify that calling,
Hey, Will,
he fell in love with his work.
Will, you've been given a new name. Camila Smith says your new name is Real Terry and not Will Terry.
Keeping it real. Okay, I'm gonna dive. I know I've got since I've got the contra, I'm gonna keep going. I'm gonna go back to the screen and share another thing, because I feel like maybe, and again, this is a speculation. Can you see my screen?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay, maybe, just maybe, one of the reasons that some of these younger people, or maybe they're our age, feel like all is lost and there's no hope, is because they don't understand what's actually going on, because our media is a mess right now in getting statistics out.
Yeah.
The crime in the U.S. is actually down. It's lower than it was. And if we look at this graph right here, I mean, in the 1960s, your crime rate was low. And then when we went through the 70s and 80s, we hit these spikes. And even in the 90s,
I blame the 70s and the 80s on feminism, but please continue, Will.
Oh no! See, now you're gonna, now everyone's gonna unsubscribe now.
I had to do it on your podcast. Go ahead, bro. Keep going.
Okay, so but the idea there is, I'll bet that if you asked the average college student, is crime worse today than it was 10, 20, 30 years ago? They'd say, oh, absolutely, yes. Absolutely, crime is worse today. And I think it's because they're not having these conversations with their parents, or their parents are uninformed. I mean, like, and one of the speculations for this is actually from video games. Have you heard that before?
Oh, tell me, I'm listening.
That there's a lot of that because young men have, young men create most of the crime, and so because they're at home playing video games, they're not out. They've already got an addiction that's kind of keeping them, which isn't the best news, right?
Right. Yeah.
But the crime rate is lower, and so we have these mass shootings, and people start thinking like, well, the world's going to end. This is just it. Everything is horrible. But what they don't realize is we've got 24-hour media, and we didn't have that.
Yeah.
When I was growing up, all these bad things were happening, and we never knew about it because you had the nightly news, and that was it.
And you had, like, first it was 15 minutes, then 30 minutes, then an hour. And now we have 24-hour news. So they have to, in order to get you to watch, they have to scare you. They have to make you think that, oh, the world is coming to an end.
Oh, yeah.
So you tune in.
So a kid, like, the chances of a kid being kidnapped today is much less than it used to be. And yet parents will not let their kids walk to school because they're afraid of them being kidnapped. And
I'm not going to let my kids walk to school. Well, I don't care what you tell me about stats.
We were able to ride our bikes. I mean, we rode our bikes like 5 to 10 miles away from home, and went to other towns and stuff. Well,
if you watch Stranger Things, you would know how dangerous that is, but you don't. Have you ever seen E.T.? Kids riding bikes, things happen, aliens show up, people start flying across the moon. There are a lot of things that can go wrong.
I'm going to have to watch this again.
Dude, how are you not watching Stranger Things?
Because it was stupid.
Because I'm Russian. Really? Stranger Things is stupid?
Okay. So what would you say if someone said, well, this is easy for you guys to say, you're old guys and you've already lived a good portion of your life, and so if the world ends, you don't care because you've already had a lot of fun?
Well,
how do you answer that?
I would think it should be the exact opposite. We should be the ones wanting the world to end because we've had our fun. And secondly, I'm not old. So, I'm the young guy who's saying that to you, Will, Terry. And then your answer to me would be, well, I should be the one who wants the world to end because I've had my fun. No, I think it's the exact opposite. I think younger people should be more optimistic of there being a future, and older people should be more pessimistic. And oh, by the way, that's how it's normally always been. That older people were looking for the end of the world because they wanted the end of their life to be significant enough that all life ended while they were alive. Younger people never listened to that lesson. They would always argue against that and say, oh, the world's not coming to the end. I got a lot of partying to do. I have these dreams. I don't have my family. And so now for the first time, the coin is flipped. And older people can see the optimism. Like, the world is so much greater than what it was when we were. Well, let me give you one example. Well, when we were kids, you being older than me, you maybe had less channels, but I only had 4 channels at one point.
Yeah.
Right. And TV went off at around 12:30. And then you got this like gray screen or whatever. And
you got that round circle thing.
Yeah.
And then they played like the Star Spangled Banner. And then
which, by the way, has subliminal messages in it. It's amazing. Google that. I'm telling you, it's crazy. You will never believe the subliminal message. It's crazy. But go back. We'll keep talking.
Okay. But anyway, that would play. And then you're right. It would go to snow and you're like, but I still want to watch TV.
Yeah, that's right. So, Will, even as a kid, I didn't sleep. Like, I'd stay up all night, even as a kid, literally. Friday nights, I didn't have to go to bed. So my mom and my dad, they let me stay up all night. And so I'd stay up till like 8 o'clock. But once the TV went off, man, there was nothing to do, right? It's like, okay, I got complete silence, but I keep drawing. So now, fast forward, 2017, you have unlimited television. I watch TV every time I work. I have something playing in the background. I can't keep up. As a matter of fact, we're living in the golden age of sports and television.
Right.
That's just two things. That's just two. Like there are hundreds others, but we're in the golden age of society and civilization, and yet people are saying there's no hope.
Right.
That's a perspective thing. That's you allowing the world to look the way you heard it looks, as opposed to like, hey, Will, you're in Utah right now, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I would say we're pretty good friends, aren't we?
Yeah.
Never met, but hey, I have a friend in Utah, and I know other artists in Utah because I'm in the golden age of communication.
But we would have never met.
We would have never met. I probably would have beat you up and took your wallet 20 years ago, right? Now it's like, oh, that's my friend Will. How you doing, Will? You know, we talk, we text, we call each other. If you look at the world the way it really is, as opposed to how people are presenting it, we walk away with optimism. So much optimism. Like, this is great. I have guys who work for me who live in India. They barely speak English, but because of the internet, we can communicate, and they work for me and they deliver their projects on time, and I get work out to them, and we go back and forth. I mean, like, there's so much great in the world. So when someone looks at it and goes, this should all come to an end, it has to come to an end, it's just terrible, I can't agree with that. I'm on the exact opposite side of the coin.
Right. Two things I want to end on. Okay.
Facts.
Two things. One, the media is on both sides are lying a lot of the time. And if you're only listening to those sources, to one or two sources that are telling you what you want to hear, or that seem to confirm your biases, then you're doing it wrong. You should be listening to people you disagree with to understand what's going on out there and to get a better picture, because a lot of know that bad news sells. You know that the news anchors, they don't get on there and tell us good news like, hey, these great things are happening. The world is a great place. They don't tell us that. Every night they tell us how bad things are. And they can do that because in isolated areas there are bad things happening. But like I just showed with the crime rate is down. That should be really good news. Instead, we end up with a feeling that things are worse now than they ever were, because the media is telling us everything is bad, everything is horrible, and everything is terrible. And now you know that, like to quote the Waterboy, and now you know that. That's one thing. So be careful of where you're getting your information. The second thing is that you are the average of probably your 5 closest friends. So chances are, if you're depressed, if you're feeling like there's no hope, you probably have friends that are feeling that way too. And I would suggest not necessarily to abandon your friends, because I don't think that's a good thing, but I think you might need to consider expanding your friendship circle to people that are more optimistic. Because I mean, I have surrounded myself with people that are forward thinking, and it's amazing how they've done studies to show that you will earn about what the average of your 5 friends make. So if your friends are all partying and playing video games and having crappy jobs, chances are you have a crappy job. And if your friends are like all working on a business, chances are you're working on a business, because you're going to be talking to your friends and they're going to be saying, you're going to be comparing notes. What are you doing? Oh, I'm doing this. Oh, why are you doing that? Well, because I can make more money. I think I can exploit the market and make some money here. And all of a sudden you start thinking, well, then, man, what am I going to do? What can I do?
There's that competition again, right?
It changes your whole outlook.
Yeah.
I mean, I can tell you right now that the little character book that I did called Little, with those characters that funded successfully on Kickstarter, and we've sold more now at conventions than we sold on Kickstarter by about double. And I'm still going. That book never would have happened if I wasn't friends with Jake. So you'll do what your friends do, whether it's good or bad, and you'll feel the way your friends do, and you'll share some of the same opinions that your friends do. And if you're unhappy, if you're depressed, chances are that your friends might be leading you down that path. I don't know. What did you want to respond to something like that?
No, we're dealing with knuckleheads in the chat. Okay. Quinn Smith told me I look like I could wrestle a dino. What's up with buff nerds these days? Who you calling a nerd? Nerd. That's the first thing I want to say to you. And then they're talking about AOL disk and how important they were, and the sound to dial up. Someone in the comments said that the AOL sound turns them on. Uh,
You don't know what that is. You could probably hear it on YouTube, couldn't you?
oh, that's amazing! So
Yeah.
I was the one who said that. I go, the AOL sound gets me excited. It's like
Oh,
a little joke, and a couple people got it, others didn't. But yeah, so there were a couple questions. Marcy had a question. So before you go, Marcy had a question. Marcy, if you could repost that question. And um, another comment was when you said surround yourself with good. So Marcy, repost your question, and yeah, we already got Ben. When you say surround yourself with good artists, that's a really, really, really important thing. But not only good artists, good people, people who are trying to do better. Whenever you find yourself in a lull in life, here's a thing that you can do: find challenges, figure out how to compete and be better. It doesn't matter what it is you're doing. If it's weight loss, if it's finding a better job, if it's being a better parent, look at someone and you say, hey, I can take some examples, not their entire personality, not who they are, and say, I can be better. When we start to improve ourselves, you'll notice something. You don't have time to be depressed.
yeah.
If you're looking to be better. So you never stay in the moment. You can explore and expand beyond the moment and say, I can be better, as opposed to focusing on where you are. It's a mindset. It's who you surround yourself with. It's the philosophy of life that you have that encourages you and catapults you into a different place. And then once you get to where it is you're trying to go, you reset, you catch your breath, and you do it again. And
And you,
before you know it, go ahead, Will.
and you try to lift others up to where
Yeah,
you.
absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah.
And that's where you find. And I of the most unhappy people I know, one thing they all have in common is they are disconnected from helping other people. I can almost guarantee that. Show me an unhappy person, and I'll show you a person who's not involved in other people's lives in helping them. It's
There
almost
was a there was a saying, and I don't know if it's true, but I believe it is. It's that if you take a baby and the baby goes, I think 7 days or 4 days without human interaction, is more likely, 70% more likely to die.
yeah.
It's because we're designed to be connected to other people, and who you connect to determines the energy, the ideas, the life force that you get. So, what you were saying earlier, if I connect to people who are doing things, well, we talked about my Kickstarter. We're talking about my YouTube channel now because I'm hanging out with people who do Kickstarters and YouTube channels.
That's right.
Instagram, my guy, my friends who do art consistently, they inspire me. Dave Atz, he's always doing great stuff on Instagram. So it's like I gotta, if you surround yourself with people who are moving forward, you're probably going to move forward. Marcy had a question, and her question was, "But how do you instill that into kids who want to create?" So, Will, why don't you start off with that?
What?
Oh, she says, "How do you instill the things we're talking about into kids who want to create?"
I mean, I short of having these discussions with your parents, if so backing way up. I mean, because I don't know how, I don't have the answers. If kids are coming up in homes where they're not, they're learning these principles, it's really tough. I mean, I can tell you what my dad taught me. I can tell you what my mom taught me. I can tell you what my grandparents taught me. I was very fortunate and very privileged to have those people in my life. And if I didn't, I don't think I would have the answers. Um, I That's a good question. I was going to reinforce another thing that you had said though about the babies without interaction.
Hmm.
There was a lady that lived down the street from us in when we lived in another town down the road, and this was like 15 years ago. And she adopted two kids from Romania that were bottle fed in the crib babies, and you can Google that if you don't know what I'm talking about. But basically, what happened in Romania is, and I don't know if it's still going on now, but babies that were basically orphaned, through, I don't know, through prostitution or through, I don't know where all these babies came from, but they didn't have parents, and they were put in these institutions, these state institutions, and they were basically put in cribs and given, and just a bottle was given to them, but they weren't held. They didn't
Yeah,
have.
yeah, I know about that. Yeah, 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 yeah.
So this woman, to be a humanitarian, and she lived in our neighborhood. She adopted two of them, and they came over to our house one time, and she was trying to socialize them in the neighborhood, and and so she came over to talk to my wife and brought them over. And I can't describe to you. I won't be able to paint the accurate picture with words.
Mhm.
These kids were animals. Um, they weren't human, and they were crippled.
Really?
Yeah, they're brain damaged for life. They will never be normal. They were 10, 8 and 10, 8 years old and 10 years old. They couldn't walk, and they crawled around on the ground. They couldn't talk. They there's certain things like, okay, so if an alien came from, you saw Men in Black, right?
Gary says it's called reactive attachment disorder.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so you saw thanks, Gary. You saw Men in Black, right?
Yeah.
Remember when Edgar puts on, or the when the alien puts on the Edgar suit?
Yeah.
He's trying to be normal, and he goes into the morgue, and he's like trying to act normal, and the guy behind the counter is like, he's everyone that sees him that runs into him like notice, hey, there's something weird about this guy. That's what was going on with these kids. They weren't kids.
Mhm.
Um, they were so disabled
Hey,
that,
Will, let me interrupt you. You'd like this. Uh, Zildjian Rom, unfinished trash bin says, you look so different. He's noticing the weight loss.
oh, cool.
Pretty much called you sexy.
Hey, thanks.
But go back and keep talking about
Yeah,
the
so that's the thing is, I mean, that's an extreme case, that's an extreme example. But if kids aren't taught this, that's one reason why I'm doing this video, why we're doing this video, is to kind of put that out there for students and say, um, if you don't know these things, hopefully I'm giving you some of this knowledge from the anecdotal stories that I have from my life, from your life, things that we've learned, and maybe that will help influence someone. I think all you can do is give people your own experiences and tell them why you're not afraid, why you don't spend every waking moment um, thinking about the end of the world. I did read an article about a girl who blogged about her phobia. There's actually a name. There's actually an actual scientific name for phobia of the world ending. I can't remember what it is, but basically, she had this crazy fear, and she one at one point she didn't sleep for like 3 or 4 days because she was just sure that at any moment the world was going to end. It got so bad. So like, I don't want to glance over and say, well, you're just scared of that you're going to fail. I don't want to paint like, I want this to be a nuanced conversation to where we recognize the fact that there is clinical depression and there are real phobias that often need treatment from a therapist. And she got really good help from her therapist, and she realized that what she was really afraid of wasn't really the world ending. It was the detachment that she felt from her parents who were going through a divorce or something like that.
oh,
She was kind of projecting that into that area, and the therapist really helped her with the kinds of the things that we're saying, like rationalizing, like, well, um, using a bit of history and different things like that really helped her to kind of come through it. And she wrote a long blog about this whole thing. It was page after page. But yeah, I mean, I hope that these conversations help. I mean, that's why I do them. That's why I do this YouTube channel. I mean, I also have this YouTube channel to plug SVS, and I know that everybody probably gets sick of me doing that, um, but also I love helping people, and if this is a great way to do it. And you mentioned technology. Um, this was something we couldn't have done 20 or 30 years ago, and now it's like you're in Chicago, I'm in Utah, we're having a conversation, and we can talk about things that maybe other people can relate with. I look at a lot of different YouTube channels, and I have learned so many things. It is, and that's why I think one of the reasons why I'm so optimistic is I am high on learning. I'm high on the work that I do, and like you said, I don't have time to worry about what I can't control. Right? Seth Godin said in his book Lynchpin, somewhere in there, he says that and I think this can help too because everybody wants to be intelligent, right? Like Tyrus, you want to be an intelligent person, right?
No, let me correct you. I am an intelligent person.
So he says this one sign of intelligence and one sign of the lack of intelligence is how fast you're able to process and move through the grief process. You know, the grief process, the 7 steps or whatever they are, where you go through bargaining and you go through anger. I don't know what all the phases are, but yeah, if you don't know what I'm talking about, Google it. Not you, but everybody else watching. And he says that that if you find yourself getting mad at the same stimuli every day, right? Like, let's say you're married, or let's say you have a girlfriend, or and your girlfriend. Let's use the common one. They leave the cap off the toothpaste, and you've asked them over and over and over to do it, right? And it's something that just keeps bugging you, and you're just so mad about it. You have a choice. He's basically saying that the less intelligent person reacts the same way every day.
Fact. That's absolutely true.
Goes through that same process and gets stuck on anger, whereas the intelligent person figures out a way to basically manipulate. And Jordan Peterson has a great. If you're a Jordan Peterson fan on YouTube, has a great.
And I am. Jordan Peterson is brilliant.
He has a great video on how to manipulate your spouse in a good way and how she can manipulate you.
Who said it had to be good? But continue, please.
Well, but basically, this goes into a whole other thing, but it's basically like if you tell the gist of it is if you tell your significant other, if you tell them in an argument, you're stupid, you can't come back from that, right?
Right.
Because you tell someone they're stupid, that hits right to their core, that goes right to their soul. There really isn't. You can't then later go, actually, you're really intelligent. I was just, you call them stupid, So his thing is, number one, don't say things like that. Don't say things you can't come back from. But number two, if you want a behavior, praise them to death for doing anything that resembles the behavior you want. And over time, you will move them more towards what you want. If they do that little thing, if they put the cap on the toothpaste once and you don't recognize it, they're just not going to do it. Or if you go about time, then they're like, oh, the cap is coming off and it's staying off, right? But if you say something like, I really appreciate the fact that you put the cap on the toothpaste. I know it's a little thing and it's a stupid thing and it's a me thing, but that I feel loved because you did that. Then they're gonna go, man, I'm gonna do that more. That's a little thing. It didn't take anything at all. And so anyway, that goes into that's our next video.
What is it?
How to manipulate artists and influence friends.
How to manipulate our spouses. Got it.
Uh-oh, my son's calling.
Really? He knows we're live.
I'm just going to tell him right now, hey, you're right in the middle of my podcast. I'm coming home in a little bit. Right. It's late here. All right. I think we've done what we can do, and I really hope that this helps everybody. And I'll have links to where you can find Mr. T. Goshay. Did you get my message this week where I said your last name seems kind of bougie?
I did. I ignored you. I'm royalty. How dare you?
I thought you did. Doesn't that name Goshay? It just kind of rolls off the tongue.
Yeah, you're making me very uncomfortable. Yeah. Hey, so let me say my goodbyes to you. Hey, so listen, guys, I am drawing pirates on my channel, and I'm probably going to do something similar to what me and Will are doing. I don't know if Will will be with me because this guy's so busy, or if I'll end up doing it by myself. I might even do something tonight because I'm up and I'm all energized and excited and ready to go. And unlike Will, I don't have to go home. I am home. So follow me on YouTube. Also, I'm on Instagram under Tigo Sketch. And if you want, you can find me on Facebook, and I'll annoy you there too. There you go.
There you go. Hey, man, I really appreciate it. And thanks to everybody that joined in. And it's just an awesome thing. I love YouTube. So good night, everybody. And we'll I'm sure you'll be back again, right? I can't get rid of you.
Well, I'll think about it. I'll think about it. Hey, and to all the people in the live chat, these guys were talking the whole night. Thank you guys so much. You guys made this a lot of fun. You guys made
I'll
this a lot of
figure
fun.
out how I can see that next time.
Yeah, I
All
got
right.
you.
Adios.